And I told him, I said, you don't understand because growing up, you were athletic and you were popular and the girls liked you and you never got picked on. And that was the exact opposite of everything for me. So when I would go home at the end of the day, I would have my comic books and my G.I. Joes and
Right.
whatever. They were my friends and they never let me down. And I never, Darth Vader might choke me out, but he was never going to make fun of me having tits before the girls did.
Yeah, yeah.
So and that really makes an impression on you as a child. And I don't think I'll let go of those things because while I don't feel like I need that security blanket today as such, it's just
Mhm.
something I enjoy and appreciate. So I never really let go of it.
Well, hello and welcome everyone to the third episode of the Geek and Jack podcast. I'm your host, Gonzalo Gonz Herrero, your nerdy biohacker trying to get fit like these guys host. And joining me today is Big Paul. For those of you who don't know Paul, Mr. Paul K. Barnett, the powerhouse behind Anabolic Bodybuilding, that YouTube channel, and IFBB Pro, CEO, trusted voice on performance enhancement. He brings unmatched insight into hardcore training, hormone optimization, and the science of building serious muscle. That's Paul right there. And joining us today is Larry. And Larry is the host of the Dork Lair podcast, where action figures, collectibles, and deep fandom all collide. A true connoisseur of geek culture. And Larry brings some sharp insights, nostalgic passion, and a collector's eye that turns every conversation to a fan-fueled adventure. How's that for an intro,
That's
guys?
pretty
That
good.
Welcome.
is an intro.
That's an
Now I got to
intro.
live up to it.
Paul, if you look behind me, I have our if we win a lottery dream house up there.
Oh, you like that meme?
Yeah,
Look
dude,
at
I love
that.
that.
Oh
It's
man,
so
look at
neat.
that collection. Even though it's not in focus, I can tell that there are goodies there that we need to like talk about for sure,
I
for
am
sure.
every bit a child of the 80s. Growing up, we weren't poor by any means, but we didn't have a lot. So for me as a kid, growing up in the 80s, it was He-Man and Transformers and G.I. Joe and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And then superheroes. But, I got toys for Christmas and then my birthday was in January. So I'd get one or two things in January and then maybe a G.I. Joe figure or a little mini bot in the Easter basket. And then I got nothing else. And there were years when we didn't get very much. So I
Right.
think what happened is when I got older and I had some disposable income and some discretionary spending, this is where it went. This is kind of spillover. This is my office, and this is just kind of where I keep my wife and I's trophies and stuff. But this has
Wow.
also been collection spillover. So my real collection room is one of the other bedrooms. That's the one that you saw pictures of.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And it
Yeah.
is impressive, by the way. So that's what started it. That nostalgia for your childhood and that experience of having the toys and I guess the related memories kind of set you down the path of collecting.
It really did, and I think I don't know about you, Paul, but growing up, I was an overweight kid. I was shy. I was awkward around girls, where and I just didn't have a lot of things that made me feel good or feel confident. And it's like a few years ago, I remember when Carrie Fisher died,
Yeah.
and I had made a post, and one of my friends from high school was like, it's like, I don't understand why you're so attached to this stuff. And I told him, I said, you don't understand because growing up, you were athletic and you were popular and the girls liked you and you never got picked on. And that was the exact opposite of everything for me. So when I would go home at the end of the day, I would have my comic books and my G.I. Joes and
Right.
whatever. And, they were my friends and they never let me down. And I never, Darth Vader might choke me out, but he was never going to make fun of me having tits before the girls did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and that really makes an impression on you as a child. And I don't think I'll let go of those things because while I don't feel like I need that security blanket today as such, it's just
Mhm.
something I enjoy and appreciate. So I never really let go of it.
No, you definitely bring like deep knowledge and the cool thing from watching your podcast is the enthusiasm. Is the
Yeah.
where the magic is. You know,
Well, I
you
want to
you t-
give Go ahead. I'm
Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. No,
I
go
was just
ahead.
I want to give credit where it's due. That actually, that's Bill's podcast. I am a co-host. I'm very
Okay.
much Robin to his Batman. He started. Actually, I discovered that podcast because there was a particular line of Star Wars figures I collected, and no one was doing reviews on them, and he
Mhm.
was the only one doing reviews on those, and that's how I started listening to him, and we connected, became friends, and I've been on there now. Gosh, I think I've been on there 5 years now.
Wow.
It's nuts to think about.
So let me ask you, because the connection to me seems obvious, but perhaps it's not obvious. You're now an IFBB pro bodybuilder.
Uh-huh.
How much of an influence was it the combination of, like you said, growing up? I grew up super overweight. Like 7 years ago, I lost 90 pounds. I
Oh,
transformed
wow.
myself completely, which is how I've ended up getting to know you guys as I'm learning more through the biohacking thing. Bodybuilders are always the number one biohackers. You guys are the pioneers when it comes to
The
like changing and
original
reshaping.
biohackers.
Oh, for real.
Exactly.
For real. I mean, there are so many practices that I've noticed that you can take from bodybuilding and perhaps by tweaking them a little bit to be not as extreme, they're still useful though to stay in shape, to practice, to have the discipline, the nutrition, how, you know, protein synthesis work. All that stuff actually has application even for the non-bodybuilder, for like a gym bro like me, just
Well,
like a regular gym bro.
go ahead, Paul. You were going to say something.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, the OG biohackers. That's all I was saying.
Well, I was
Absolutely.
listening to one of your Q&As the other day, and you were talking about it was either a Q&A or it was the Sunday live stream that you have something, and you were because we were talking about something that medical was doing, and you made the point that if you look throughout history, and I've said this to folks before, bodybuilders are always decades ahead of
Yep.
what regular medicine is doing. And I think you were talking about your blood sugar and your insulin and diabetes management,
On
how
Reta,
Yeah,
probably the Reta conversation. It's big.
yeah,
It's been big.
just how to manage that. I mean, you've probably, and I hate to say this, but I work in medical sales and I'm in ophthalmology now. And by no stretch of the imagination can I even begin to approach the knowledge level of a glaucoma specialist, that I work with every day. But when I was in just internal medicine or infectious disease, anytime nutrition would come up, I would just think to myself, oh my gosh, you should never have a conversation in public with anyone about nutrition because you're exposing just
Hmm.
how woefully, how much the college and school failed you because they don't know anything. It's
well, you
disturbing.
you think about it, a general practitioner, really, they're trained to treat sick people. That's really what they do. They're not preventative medicine. They're reactive medicine. So they're reacting to people that are sick, and most of the people that come to them are fat and out of shape. Most doctors are fat and out of shape.
Yep.
That too. Yeah.
So they don't. It's funny. I do a lot of consults with medical practitioners, and I have actually a couple clients that are medical doctors as well. I mean, granted, to be a GP, you have to know a little. My daughter's going to head off to medical school, but you have to know a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
When you get into the specialties, then things get a little bit different. But GPs really, they're just kind of a jack of all trades.
Hmm.
They have to know enough about everything to be able to treat people, and really, they don't. Nutrition is not part of what they do. They don't have time to sit down and write somebody up a fucking diet. They got 15 minutes with you. They're gonna take your vitals and throw you whatever prescription you need to. They're basically just a gateway to getting pills, really.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very
Yeah. And the
true.
other thing is maybe they've had in college like one semester of nutrition and a class. And then after that, 10, 20 years later into the practice, unless you're pretty focused and you keep up with your continuing education, you're going to have that as your base. And you might never, unless you're actively looking to stay on track with the latest and greatest info, you're going to have outdated info that you'll use for 10, 20, 30 years because you really don't have a call to use it in most cases. So, there's that conversation right there. And then, shift over to like bodybuilders where you're looking for every edge, every advantage, every tool to optimize, that human condition and performance. We were talking about Reta, for example. Tirzepatide is the one I've had the most experience with. So, because I tried Reta and it did not work for me. It didn't work at all.
Yeah, my doctor prescribed me Tirzepatide. I'll say this, Tirzepatide definitely has a lot more appetite suppression than Reta does.
Yes.
It's interesting though, because they prescribed it to me for I'm a type 1B diabetic. And the Reta pretty significantly lowered my fasting glucose, whereas the Tirzepatide has seemed to have very minimal impact on my glucose
Really?
levels.
Do you think
really
that's the
have seen-
glucagon?
I think it's the glucagon
okay.
agonist in it that because of my type of, I mean, if I were type 2, it probably would be more beneficial. But I have a feeling that it's the glucagon agonist that my body's probably just, in gluconeogenesis or whatever sometimes, or just dumping liver glycogen. I don't know, but that's just speculation.
So that kind of dovetails into a question that I had for you. Having diabetes, and we were talking about the nutritional deficiencies in medicine between visiting general practitioners or internists versus, I'm assuming you see an endocrinologist.
Yeah, I have an endocrinologist.
Have you seen that because they deal with more things that they seem to be not necessarily cutting edge, but at least more up to date with their nutritional knowledge?
Endocrinologist? No.
Yeah. No?
No.
Okay, that's fair. I was just curious. I didn't
No,
know.
my endocrinologist is out of shape. And my GP, she was very concerned about my steroid use, and she wanted me to talk to my endocrinologist about it. And she's like, I don't know anything about that stuff. I deal with diabetics.
Right.
My area of expertise is diabetes, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's a huge vector change, right?
My GP, she wanted me to get on enclomiphene and come off the testosterone, and I'm like, lady, I've been on PEDs for 30 years. You think enclomiphene's going to do shit for me?
No, you're shooting at a freight train with a BB gun.
Yeah.
No, she was very concerned about me being on, I'm just running 200 milligrams of testosterone right now. I'm not doing anything.
You're like, I'm good. I'm at TRT levels. I'm perfectly fine.
Well, my last GP fired me, so I just got signed up with a new one. I go to a concierge medical practice. I pay a little extra just so I can have access. But when I met with her initially a few months back, I was open with her about the PEDs, and she asked me which ones have I taken, and I said all of them.
All of them.
I need one of those long yellow legal pads.
It's like here.
And she's like, "What do you mean all of them?" And I'm like, "I mean all of them. I've tried everything at some point." And she's like, "Well, what's the most testosterone you've ever taken?" And I said, 2,000 milligrams.
2 grams.
She's like, 2 grams. She's like, "Do you mean 200 milligrams?" And I'm like, "No, 2,000."
Yeah.
And she's like, "What? People take that much?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
I'm not even that bad.
I'll be honest with you. I just told her, I'm like, 2,000.
Yeah.
2,000 was a little too much for me. I backed off to 1,000 to 1,250.
Just imagine if Chase walked into that office.
Oh my Lord.
It's like, didn't he take like 5-10 grams?
Oh my God. He was taking, I don't remember. He was taking 500 milligrams a day. So what does that work out to be? 3,500 a week. Yeah.
That's a lot. I just can't imagine how many areas you have PIP throughout your body. I mean, your blood at that point is like at least 3% BA, right?
Yeah. It's all oil at that point.
I mean, that would be,
Hi, I'm Larry. I'm a 220 mixture.
So I think, Chase is Mr. 3cc, so he just fills it up to 3 cc's and picks a spot.
And goes. That's a lot.
That's something. Speaking of, somewhat related, I was going to ask you guys, have you guys had any experience with GHK-Cu? And I ask because, one of the things when I did the weight loss thing was, of course, there's some loose skin and stuff that I've been able to tighten as best I can. But, being the vainest man that you guys will ever meet, I'm like, there are definitely places that I would like to tighten up even further. Have you guys ever played around with GHK?
Yeah, I'm actually using it as part of my recovery protocol from the surgery.
For the shoulder? Okay.
Yeah, I tried it I had some loose skin on my stomach, and I had an excision, a mini tummy tuck done which was awful to be on. I wouldn't recommend going through that. That was the worst surgery I've ever had. Way worse than the shoulder surgery. But I have seen some people use it and have pretty dramatic results. I would say it just depends on how loose the skin is. There's probably other things you would want to do for collagen synthesis as well. You know, Anavar is pretty decent for collagen synthesis. GH is good for collagen synthesis. I would say probably the single best thing you could probably do is just take some growth hormone if you have loose skin. You know, and sometimes there's just not much you can do. Like in my situation, it was just I got really fat in my 30s.
No, I mean, I had the skin removal in my abdomen because after my weight loss, I'm only 5'8", so imagine 90 pounds off. That's a lot of weight that came off.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight. I probably could have gotten away without it. Looking back on it, I was just self-conscious about it and got it fixed. But yeah, I mean, you know, GHK-Cu, I just look at it. It's one of those things. It's not going to hurt anything. It's, you know, most of the peptides are pretty benign as far as side effects go. Yeah, they're just proteins at the end of the day. And you know, if it helps a little bit, it helps a little bit. But I would say the best peptide for healing and collagen synthesis and all that stuff is going to be growth hormone.
I will neither confirm nor deny how many TP orders I've placed. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to hurry up and get back online. But
yeah,
that's a different topic. I'm actually running GHK right now. I started, I think, what is today? Today's Thursday. So today's my 4th day. I have, you know, I've stayed pretty tight. And Paul, I don't know if you recall from my pictures, but you can see the outer part of my pecs. I'm getting, you know, I'm gonna be 50 next year, so I'm getting that post. Oh wow,
I didn't realize you were that old, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'll be 50 in January.
Yep.
So, but I'm getting that kind of that, you know, around the outer lower pecs, that skin that doesn't want to tighten up until the very end, and I'm starting to see a little around my belly button. So I talked to BB Extreme, you know, on Professional Muscle. Yeah, he's been very helpful with me. I've been talking to him in DMs, and I'm doing 1 milligram unilaterally, one milligram to each side, sub Q each day. And what really got me onto it was I was listening to Scott McNally and the guys. I think it was the coaches with Skip Hill and with Andrew Berry. Yeah. And he had put up an actual picture of a guy who had used it all the way through his prep. And of course, your skin's going to get tighter. You're going to get fuller as you get prepped. But you could tell areas that tightened up way more than they should have or would have otherwise. I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to give it a shot. No pun intended.
We had a picture up. I think not this past week, but the weekend before. One of Chase's guys on his member site. Yeah, I had some pretty dramatic results with it.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like Paul said. I said to myself, you know, at the worst, it's not going to hurt anything. So why not?
Yeah. And it's not super expensive either.
No, no, it's not. It really is not. I think that 100 milligram vial was like, what, $30, $35, $40, something like that.
Something
it wasn't bad at all.
Yeah.
And then I also have heard that red light therapy, in addition to helping boost fat loss, because something about it liberating fat in those areas, so it's supposed to be good to use your the red light therapy just prior to fasted cardio, because it releases more fat into your bloodstream. Paul, I'm sure there's a more technically accurate way that you could probably describe it, but that's what I've been able to glean. And I've also heard that helps with the collagen synthesis. So I'm going to be doing that as well.
That's cool. I actually have a Juve light right next to me right here. So I'm going to try that. Easy. It's already here. I already paid for it. May as well try it.
All in the quest to look 20 years younger than we are, right?
That's right. That's right. But I will say this. You guys don't look your age, either one of you. So well done, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'm the senior citizen here. I think I'm the oldest of the group.
Are you?
Well, you know what? You're also
I'll be 54 on Sunday.
Oh, no, you got me beat. I'm 51.
So
yeah, I thought you were a couple years ahead of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So let me open up some nerdy questions and convo. Maybe we'll see where it goes.
Before we do that, Larry,
yes.
I've got a Castle Grayskull sitting out at my parents' house. It's
the vintage one.
Yeah, I've got that, and I've got the Terradrome too.
Oh, that's how. See, I had kind of aged out by the time Turtles came around. My brother had all
Oh no,
those.
that's the G.I. Joe thing.
Oh, the Terrordrome. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
thought Technodrome. I never had the Terrordrome. We didn't. Again, like I said, I never had any of the big stuff. Every year I put up on my Instagram, today this is the whatever anniversary of me not getting the USS flag for
I was
Christmas.
gonna ask you if you bought that.
I
I
had
wanted that thing so
Oh
bad.
my gosh. I had one friend growing up that had it. He wasn't even a friend. I was the son of one of my mom's coworkers, and I got to see it one time. And then when I got into adulthood, a friend of mine, when I lived up in Northern Virginia, I lived in Alexandria for about 5 years, Paul.
Oh,
I
okay.
had a
Yeah, you're right around
friend,
the corner from me.
yeah, I had a friend who lived out in Springfield, and he had bukus of money. He was some kind of a computer programming like genius, but he had bought on eBay pieces and pieced together and had a complete USS flag. That was
Wow.
really cool. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. And like so let using this as the lead in. So what makes for you, Larry, like a collectible like essential? What is it that makes it like really cool? Is it just
If
rarity or does it have
No,
to have that
it's not.
associated
No,
memory?
it's not
Mhm.
rarity at all because the vast majority of my collection is stuff that I've bought in the last 10 or 12 years because it's all properties that were around when I was younger, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, whatever the case
Right.
may be. But now, these properties are still alive, but there's high end stuff like the He-Man stuff behind me.
Mhm.
Those are 1/6 scale figures. They're like $250 a piece. That Battle Cat
Yeah.
up there was like $400, but it's the size of my freaking Boston Terrier.
Right.
And then that gray skull is from the classics line that came out from like 2008 to 2013. And the majority of my Transformer stuff is what's called Masterpiece. And this is a Japanese line. So
Mhm.
everything there is imported, and those pieces are anywhere from $70 or $80 to $400 or $500. And
Gotcha.
then Hasbro now has a specific collector's line. It's called HasLab, and it's not crowd funded per se, but they only make as much as is pre-ordered.
Oh,
And the
nice.
very first thing out of the gate was like a 3 foot tall transforming Unicron, and that was like 600 and some bucks. And
Wow.
that's like the centerpiece of my collection. So
Yeah.
for me, I like quality, like the higher end stuff I really like. So like even
Mhm.
with Marvel stuff, I've got a handful of the retail level, the $20 figures, but most of my Marvel stuff is Japanese imports, SH Figure Arts, Mafex, those types of lines. And those are anywhere from, $80 to a couple $100 for the 112 scale, Mezco 112, that sort of stuff. And so I really like stuff like that. And what's really awesome is, and you hear it from people in bodybuilding and in collecting, my wife
Mhm.
hates this, my girlfriend doesn't understand whatever.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when I met my now wife and we were hanging out and we were just working out together, talking on the treadmill, and I started talking about my podcast. And now bear in mind the whole time I'm thinking, this is just someone I'm going to talk to at the gym. There's no way that this woman has any interest in me because she is way out of my league. I think her eyes are screwed up, and that works
As
out
it
great for
often
me.
happens.
Dude, I'm telling you, anytime I interview for a sales position, I just show them a picture of my wife, and I was like, you don't have anybody can beat that selling job. Um, but
So
I
says the
remember,
pro bodybuilder.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, so I was telling her about this podcast that we were doing, and I thought, man, she's acting like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, okay, she's just being nice. Well, the next day she comes in, she's like, oh, I listened to a few episodes of your podcast. That's really cool. I really enjoyed that. It's
All
like,
right.
madness is this. And then when I was at my old townhouse, like she came over and a couple times I had gotten something in, and it's a box from Japan with all these kanji on it. She said, oh, what's this? I was like, oh, it's a new piece for my Transformers collection. She goes, well, open it. So I mean, she was totally into
So
it.
you're like
So
sold.
yeah, she just like it's not stuff that she's going to go buy for herself, but she's totally supportive. She enjoys it. I enjoy it. And there are a lot of my favorite pieces in my collection are things that she's gotten me. So when you ask me what makes a great piece, yes, there's going to be the nostalgia piece. There's going to
Mhm.
be, I have certain favorite characters, and then things that she's gotten me, like Cable is one of my favorite Marvel characters.
Nice.
And she got me, there's a company called Sideshow, and they do hot toys. And these
Yeah.
are really detailed 1/6 scale figure. And for Christmas a couple years ago, she got me the Cable from the Deadpool movie, you
Nice.
know, and Optimus Prime is my favorite Transformer. And I've got like 2 big tower shelves of just all Optimus Prime stuff. Like I've probably got 100 different Optimus Prime figures, but there are a couple of those that she got me. So if the house, God forbid, was burning down, and they were like, you could
Those are the ones you're grabbing.
Yeah, I'm grabbing the stuff that she got me. So,
That's fair.
Yeah. So
That's fair.
It's really cool. And then on top of that, the whole meathead thing, you know, I couldn't ask for a more supportive person. I really am blessed.
Yeah. Lucky
I think
you,
with the bodybuilding thing, we all kind of grew up. Like I know with me, like it was like I wanted to look like the G.I. Joe He-Man figure. My hero Arnold was kind of like the real life embodiment of that action figure.
For sure.
And that was kind of what inspired me. I was a nerd growing up. You were talking about you didn't know if I was nerdy or not. Dude, I played the fucking tuba and was on the chess team.
Trombone, all county, all district, all state.
Yeah,
Tri-Am National Honor Society.
I picked up the guitar. You know why? Because I had no athletic skills. And I figured if I don't figure out a guitar and how to sing real quick, I'm done. I got nothing.
So, Paul, you were tuba.
Tuba?
Yeah, I actually studied music in college. I was a tuba major in college.
Oh, really? I knew you said you studied music composition. I didn't realize that your instrument was part of that.
Yeah. No, I was music education and performance.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
What I studied. Yeah. I was going to be a band teacher. Then I realized that they didn't make any money.
No, but I'll tell you what, of my favorite instructors and the people that I consider as being the most influential on my life, my high school band director, Mr. Carswell, he was an evil, just slave driver of a human. But
Same with my high school band director. I loved
that freaking dude. I remember, so if you were in the band, if you took study hall, you had band study hall. Like there was no option. You had band study hall, which was fine.
We did
I could
too.
go in
Same structure.
Yep. I could go in and work my skills, work my method book, all that kind of stuff. The stuff I had to play off for exams, I could do in there and not have to come in after school. But he would always get on to me because he's one of those people. He didn't demand perfection. He demanded whatever your best was. And if somebody else's perfection was 80% of yours, then your 80% was not good enough. You needed to be 100%. And it didn't matter how well I did at something. He always wanted more. I remember, the Nike phrase was just do it. And I had a Nike shirt on one day and I had been kind of dragging my ass in practice. And he walks into the practice room, he grabs my shirt and he does that. He goes, do you ever read this thing? Have you ever read what your shirt says? He goes, and he's like, follow it. And then just walked out of the room. And that was the end of it.
Wow,
but
mic drop.
We went to, Yeah.
Mic drop.
And we went, and Paul, what state were you in when you were growing up?
Virginia.
Okay. Did you guys have, go to contest every year?
Yeah.
Play for a rating? Okay. So.
Yeah, district band.
Yep. So my high school had like an uninterrupted string of like 40 some superiors going all the way back to.
So did we.
Yeah. Going all the way back to the high school before ours. And every year, you have your Christmas concert, and that's easy, fun music. You play Sleigh Ride, you play whatever. You've almost got it memorized, and they're easy and fun. But you know that the minute you come back from Christmas break, you start practicing for contest because contest is in March, and that's 12 weeks. It's the musical equivalent of prepping for a bodybuilding show.
Gotcha.
By the time you get to contest, they could burn your sheet music, and you could play with your eyes closed, and you know what you're doing. And we would have morning practices. We'd come at like 6 a.m. before school. We'd have night practices. And wow. Paul will tell you the same thing. I would play until my face was numb. Like my embouchure was shot. I had nothing. I'd go home and like my mouth would ache.
Yeah.
But we got that superior every year. And I remember one year coming off stage, it had been particularly bad. We always went in grade 6, which was the most difficult grade. And I came off the stage and I said, are you going to let us take a breath now? And he shakes my head and he looks at me and he draws me close. He goes, why, hell no. And then, we're right back to it. So, but
yeah,
I loved it.
I had a very similar journey. We were one of the best bands in all of the state. Mm-hmm. Same deal. We had a long run. And then I ended up doing, I don't know if you're familiar with drum and bugle corps. I did that.
Yep.
Afterwards, I marched in DCI and was a member of a world champion drum and bugle
Oh,
corps.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I did that for a while, and that's really like where I learned how to push myself. That was a big part of drum corps. And my high school band director was learning how to push yourself. Getting shutting that voice up in your head, telling yourself you can do things that you didn't think were possible. And I was just a hick, man. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I was lucky to have these influential people in my life at a young age that really shaped and molded me as an adult. It just like, and that's one of the things I tried to do with my channel is pay some of that forward, because I had some really good mentors when I was younger, and I consider myself to be, even as an adult, I've just had the good fortune of stumbling into some really awesome people that have been there and helped me out. Like, bodybuilding, like I go back to like Dante Trudell. He was a big
Oh,
part of
yeah.
my early, Dante trained me for several years. I got to be friends with Dante. I mean, he was amazing. Justin's amazing. I just have been, Todd, I worked with Todd for a period of time. I just have had some very good people in my life along the way, some good business mentors that worked in business. So and it all kind of started with band.
Yeah. No, I very similar. Again, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. We lived on the end of a dirt road.
Me
We
too.
split wood every year because we didn't have central heating and air. We heated with a wood stove.
Wow.
So I spent March
Same.
to November every year busting wood. Now when I went off to college, they got central heating and air, didn't they?
Yeah, it was.
They also paved the road.
Oh
So
man,
yeah, man, I was
all
like,
the
But
come
goodies
my
on.
when you left.
my
When
my,
I
my
left,
childhood, Larry, it sounds like much like yours. In the winter, it was splitting wood. In the summer, it was stacking hay.
yeah. Now we didn't have the farm, but we were surrounded by them. But yeah, we were working with the neighbors, helping them out.
It's probably why I had to have shoulder surgery from slinging hay bales when I was a teenager.
One thing that I learned growing up, it's a whole lot more fun to throw it out of the barn than it is to throw it into the barn.
No. Yes. Yeah.
Because
I
that
stopped.
up and over, that gets tough.
That's how I originally developed my upper body, was slinging hay bales and swinging an axe.
The
Wow.
first contest I ever had, because Ollie was asking me when we got on how long I've been competing, and I did my first show when I was 18. But
Oh
I'll
wow.
never forget that first contest. My cardio was splitting wood. Like I was splitting wood anyway, but it was splitting for time, making it intervals. And
Right.
even then, I was using progressive resistance because I would keep track of how many logs I was splitting in a given time period. And it was like the big beyond belief system. I was just trying or the time factor training. I was trying to do more in the same amount of time. And that was my cardio for my first contest.
Phew. Man, I
Yeah.
grew up like on the beach in the Caribbean, so
I
I'm
wish I'd
sorry.
have that.
Like that was hard work because we were like very much working class. Like
Yeah.
the Caribbean and Puerto Rico, like there are different parameters for that. It's more city and beach, I guess. But yeah, there were no hay bales
No,
down there.
no.
I
There
grew
was
up in.
fishing, you could cast a net, but that's
Yeah,
about it.
I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains. My parents still live in the same place I grew up at, the 100 acres out in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
Wow.
I was in the foothills. I lived about 30 minutes from Boone, North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
So it's funny, our upbringing sound very, very similar.
Yep.
And it was hard work. I told my dad, I said, when you die, I said, I'm not going to put any of that sappy, here lies beloved husband, loving father. I said, I'm going to put a quote on there. Get out of bed, daylight's burning, because that's what I heard every morning of my life growing up. Get out of bed,
Wow.
daylight's burning. Yep.
Let's
Oh my
go.
God. My
Yep.
my dad was the same way. I
Yep.
remember when I was a kid, Saturday mornings, I just wanted to watch cartoons. Motherfucker would be outside of my window at 6 a.m. with the
Yep.
chainsaw fired up. And he's like,
Uh,
let's go, banging on my window. And I'm like,
Yep.
come on,
And
man.
he was sawing the logs and you had to sling them. And then when they
Yeah.
dried
He was
out, it was
sawing the
time to
logs and
split
I
them.
had to split them. Yeah,
Yep.
that
oh
was how it
That was
man.
worked.
it.
I was splitting and stacking. I was doing
Yep.
the shit part
And
of it.
then in the summertime, if you weren't cutting, there was yard work, and then in the fall, when you were done with the wood, there was brush to drag from all the storms that had knocked brush down in the woods.
Yeah, I remember I just wanted to drive the tractor when we were baling hay. I'm like, I just want to drive the damn tractor. I don't want to be at the back throwing bales up on the wagon.
Yeah, yeah, it was. But you know
Anyway,
what?
I didn't mean to get you
That
sidetracked here, man.
no,
No, but you know
that's
what?
fine.
I think it's good because it gives an insight to where work ethic comes from.
Hmm.
All these things I complained about when I was young and I hated when I was young. And, you know, when we split, we had to handle that wood something like 14 times, log and truck, cut it, split it, stack it. And that
Yep.
was up on the hill. Then when we bring down the house, load it into the truck, throw it on the porch, stack it into the
Yep.
house,
Wow.
into the fireplace, unload the ashes out to the garden, bury the ashes to fertilize the garden, to
Right.
till
Yep.
under in the spring because you got to grow food. So all those things that I hated and just dreaded, now I am so thankful that's how I grew up, because going and picking up a barbell is easy. That's fun. We do that because we want to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my
And then
dad was
you
definitely
enjoy
a
that
ball
sweat
buster.
too. Hmm.
he was a ball buster.
Yeah. He,
Yeah.
my dad, there was no sitting around.
No. And here's the thing now. Now, my dad, I don't know if your parents are still living.
Yeah, they're
Mine,
alive.
okay. Yeah, I'm very fortunate. Mine are. My dad this summer will be 70, 74. Is that right?
Okay.
No, 76. He'll be 76.
Hmm.
And I'm not convinced that he still can't whip my ass. I mean, I'm being serious. I'm being totally serious. Like, if I ever had to fight that man, I'd make sure I had a stick or a gun or something, because
Yeah.
I don't know if I
Even the
could beat him
odds.
with my fists. Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't tangle with that dude, especially now, because he's like, I've lived 80 years. I'm good. I'm ready to go. That's somebody you don't want to
Gotcha.
mess with.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
my
Man.
dad's still my dad's in his mid-70s, and he's still out there splitting wood
Yep.
and sawing logs and doing everything he was doing 40 years ago.
I think hard work keeps you young. My mother will be 78. And the only thing she doesn't do around her house is she doesn't climb ladders, because she said, Larry, I'm old, and if I fall, I will break. But she
That's
mows her yard. She
100%
does
true.
all of her gardening. She does all the weed eating. She does an hour of cardio on her recumbent bike every night. And she goes to the gym and does resistance training 3 days a week. And
Nice. I
And
mean,
my
there's
dad,
nothing more dangerous than a fall when you're like
yeah,
past probably 60, 65. That's just how it
yep.
is. I
my,
mean,
my
trust, my
crazy
wife
ass.
works in a hospital. We know all about it.
Oh
So,
yeah, I mean that can be a big problem. My crazy ass dad, he's in his mid-70s, and he replaced the roof on their house. He did construction. He replaced the roof on their house last summer. I'm like, dude, what are you doing,
wow.
man? I would have paid for it. I'm like, I just would have just let me know, man. I would have had somebody come out there and
Dang.
Yep. They want to do it themselves. That's their
no, he
generation,
was up
man.
there. I'm like,
Supermen. They were Supermen, you know,
hey,
which is a perfect segue for. So, check this out. I just wanted to get your thoughts on these two little movies that are coming out soon. We got the new, and yet another Superman movie, okay? And of course, the Fantastic Four coming up. Now, here's a couple of things I wanted to throw out to get your thoughts. The rumor is the villain in the Superman movie is dun, 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 internet trolls. It's
Okay.
literally Lex Luthor paying internet trolls to torture Superman online and make him
what?
depressed. Apparently, that's the plot line.
I've heard
That
that. I don't know how
sounds
much
terrible.
I don't know how much I buy it, but I'll say this. If anyone can take something that absurd and make a good movie with it, it would be James Gunn.
Absolutely.
True.
Because I was like, when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, he took a bunch of characters that no one knew anything about, no one
No one
cared
cared.
anything about,
Yep.
and made what was up until that time one of the best Marvel movies.
Yep.
And then Guardians 2, he elevated. I mean,
Yeah.
anytime I hear I'm Mary Poppins,
Yeah.
I almost roll a tear, because Yondu,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yondu.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I have faith in James Gunn. The first preview looked pretty good. I still think Henry Cavill got a raw deal. I think Henry Cavill did
He
not
was
get the opportunity to be the
he was
Superman that he could have
perfect.
been. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ben Affleck did not get a chance to be the Batman that he could have been.
You know, a lot of people give Ben Affleck a lot of crap for his Batman role. I thought he was actually pretty solid.
I didn't think he was a good Bruce Wayne. I almost said Patrick Bateman. I think Christian Bale
Yeah.
was the best Bruce Wayne we've gotten. But
Yeah.
I think Ben Affleck he was, and I know it was kind of an amalgamation of movies and still in this and that.
Right.
But if if Frank Miller's comic book, The Dark Knight Returns, came to life, that was Ben Affleck's Batman.
The
And I
hulking, the
loved
more
it. I loved it.
hulking,
Yep.
really huge.
And the way he fought, the way he talked.
Yeah.
And Ben Affleck got in good shape for that movie. Like his little training montage,
Mhm.
I was like, dude, let's hear it for PEDs, because I know that wasn't just chicken and rice.
And I never realized, like, you know, just because it's hard to tell unless you're there with him. Like, he's a huge individual. He's like 6'4".
He's not a little guy. Yeah, he's a big
Yeah.
dude.
So
He's a big dude.
So that definitely does the imposing, you know, Batman thing. So
I'm hopeful for Superman, and the simple fact that he's going to have crypto in there.
yeah.
I give you points for that right out of the gate.
Yeah. And as far as the Fantastic Four goes, the trailer I've seen looks interesting. Of course, there's the whole like Silver Surfer is a girl now thing, which doesn't matter. I mean, does it matter?
Oh, you go first on this one, and I'll give you my thoughts.
Look, I get the whole diversity and inclusion thing. I get the need to
Sure.
pull things in, but it's just, it comes off as disingenuous when you force it. Like
right.
there's some great female protagonists in you know, I've seen, you know, movies with fantastic female protagonists. I saw you have The Last of Us on here. That's a show with a great female protagonist that fits very well. But I just like, I hate when they try to force things and change things just for the fuck of it.
Yeah, arbitrary.
It's kind of like
it was arbitrary.
it's kind of like shitting on my childhood, to be honest with you. That's
Yeah.
the way I feel about it. I'm just like, come on, like I really like. I'm a huge Wheel of Time fan. I love the books and like.
Oh,
they
you
just,
must have
like,
been so mad when that came out.
Oh,
when
the
yeah.
show
came
is
out.
just like I couldn't watch it, man. Like they just murdered the books. I'm just like, come on. It was
that
so
show, that show, I never read the books, but I have friends who were huge into it. So when the show came out, I bought the books and I started reading them, and I quickly realized, what do you feel? Like, this is very different from what I'm reading over here, and not in a good way. In
No.
a kind of hackneyed way, you know?
I've heard people that didn't didn't read the books and watch the show actually enjoyed the show, but it was really hard for me to enjoy it having read the books. But yeah, I just, just circling back to it, I'm like, just leave the source material alone, for fuck's sakes. The source material is sort of like the guide, the handbook, the Bible on everything. Why mess with a formula that works?
And this
Yeah.
kind of folds back into what Todd was saying last week, or I guess technically 2 episodes ago, because I don't think episode 2's up yet. But
Yeah, I
when
haven't
I
put
was
it up
watching
yet.
episode 1, I was like, oh man, this would have been a cool show, Bill. But then everything Todd said, I was like, okay, I don't even need to be there, because that dude is channeling my every thought. But it's like
Todd
he
is a
said,
font of nerd knowledge.
well, but the thing is, what they're doing with so much of, and it goes back to, like he was saying, Kathleen Kennedy took every male icon and crapped all over them. Indiana Jones, we don't need you. We have, Fleabag, and that woman is insufferable. I mean, I couldn't even stand her as Lando Calrissian's robot in Solo. She's insufferable. So
Yeah.
they had already, they did that to Indiana Jones, and then they turned Han Solo into a deadbeat dad. They turned Luke Skywalker into a depressed quitter, and and then Han and Leia's son is some kind of emo whatever. When they had the Thrawn trilogy they could pull from.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, like Todd said, and then when they did use Thrawn, and I'm gonna get hot here. When they did use Thrawn, they used him in the Ahsoka series, and they made him an effing dumbass. He was an idiot. If you watch Rebels, that was Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yeah.
Whatever this thing was in Ahsoka, it looked like skinny fat Brent Spinner put on blue makeup instead of gold makeup and played a really, 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 really bad Imperial Admiral. It was god awful. And I don't know who did the designs on this, but that stormtrooper thing with the gold face,
Yeah.
I want to put whoever did that on a rocket ship and shoot him into orbit the next time Elon sends one up. But
So,
that's
you
ahead.
know where that came from? That's the idea originally, was from that Japanese style of wabi sabi, where
Oh,
you
yeah,
take
yeah.
something broken and fix it
Right,
with
right.
gold, and
Except what they've done with Star Wars is they took something that didn't need to fix it and they broke it.
and they broke it.
You go back to, like I said, The Force Awakens, Han's a deadbeat dad, Luke. Luke wasn't even in the movie till the end. He didn't say a word.
Yep.
Who does that? And then in the Last Jedi, well, forget that. Ryan Johnson just cemented the fact that he's a moron. I mean, he said to me, a good movie experience is when half the people hate it and half the people love it. Well, congratulations, you knocked one out of the park. But that's what Kathleen Kennedy's done with everything she's taken off. She even did it to freaking Warwick Davis, Willow.
Yeah.
They have completely
that was terrible.
They memory hold that. It's gone so they can count it as a tag. You'll never see it. If you didn't like record it somehow when it came out, you're never seeing it again. But it was for the sake of elevating a female.
It was painful. It was
And
just
then
painful.
to what Paul said about honoring the source material, that's why Henry Cavill left The Witcher, because it stopped becoming about him and it started becoming about all these other female characters. And it totally said, well, here's where the story that everyone loves. Let's go over here. And it's what Marvel has done. Since Endgame, Marvel has had a couple of good things. And it's been the Spider-Man stuff. It's been the Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, it was fun.
That kind of stuff. Even Multiverse of Madness, which was 90% good, the 10% of complete dog vomit was when we had Professor X and the guy who should be playing Reed Richards. And we had those folks. And then you get Wanda just destroying them in 2 seconds, which is, yes, I know, alternate universes, whatever. But what they've done since Endgame, here's why 2009 to 2019 worked, or 2008 to 2019 worked. Here's why it worked. They took great comic book stories and they said, let's see what this would be with modern technology, not with modern sensibilities, not with DEI, not with the message. They said, let's bring this technologically into the future. And it was beautiful. There were some stinkers, the Dark World wasn't that good. But largely it was a huge success. Since then, what they did is they went to about 2015 in comics, which was what was called the Marvel Now era, which began what we call the MCU. They started, you got Ironheart replacing Iron Man. You got Captain Marvel, she's not Marvel Girl anymore now. She's Captain Marvel, or Miss Marvel rather. And you got all these people, and they don't need to force that in pop culture. They don't need to force that in nerd culture. There have always been strong, Jean Grey, the Goblin Queen, Emma Frost. You've always had that in Marvel. In DC, you've always had Wonder Woman. In science fiction, we had Princess Leia. We had Ripley. We had Sarah Connor. We had Sarah Connor. 100%. We had the badasses of badasses, and it was believable, and it wasn't forced. And in the genre of horror, what is the one thing that's a constant in the genre of horror? The girl who lives. The girl's always the hero. So it's not like we needed a bunch of white liberals who are self-hating. We didn't need them to ruin stuff. It was working fine, which brings me to Fantastic Four. Now, I know what they're doing, and I said when I saw the first preview, this is an alternate reality 1960s. And I don't know, Paul, are you into comics at all, or you just like the properties? Do you read comics at all?
I did read some when I was a kid. I used to read the X-Men and Batman comics, but I wasn't like a huge comic guy.
Do you remember there was a series of comics? It was three 12-issue series. It was written by, oh gosh, I can't remember who wrote it.
Alex.
No,
not
that. Alex.
No,
Ross
I was just saying I read.
Yeah. Alex Ross did the covers there for Marvel.
Oh, Kingdom Come?
No, that was DC. Same type thing. But it was called Earth X, Universe X, and Paradise X. And it was like the far future of the Marvel Universe. And in this far future, Shia LaBeouf was the Silver Surfer. But it was because Norrin Radd had died, and she, go through a roundabout way that made sense. And you had May Parker was Spider Girl because Peter Parker was in his 50s and he was over. So, and all this kind of stuff. So I know where they pulled that from. And I think they did it because, this is an alternate universe. Whatever they're doing with Galactus is not going to come through here. And I think eventually we'll have the real Silver Surfer here. So that's how I'm trying to look at it.
Maybe,
have you seen Thunderbolts yet?
I have not. I'm going this weekend, I think.
Okay, so I'll tell you this. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hmm.
but it's probably, other than Deadpool and Wolverine, it's the best thing that Marvel's done since Endgame.
Okay, and that's
It's
what I've heard from my
very,
friends.
it's very
Yeah.
self-deprecating. I think it's fun. There's no girl bossing. There's no, there's no preaching. There's no, well, if you're not an intersectional minority, then you're a
Mhm.
bad person. There's none of that.
So
But
the
there
story is allowed to evolve
yeah,
as a
and I
story,
think it's
and
a
the
decent
characters to
story.
play as characters.
And
Okay.
and so do you mind if I tell you about one of the end stingers? It's not a huge spoiler.
No,
but
not at all. Like, I'll just say for anyone watching this who hasn't seen the movie, probably
5,
spoilers.
4, 3, 2,
Two,
1.
go.
So one of the end stingers, in space comes the Fantastic Four, right?
Okay.
They've come over from that alternate universe. So that's how they're bringing them into the Marvel universe. So I don't know what happens in FF, but obviously they're going to do something to deal with Galactus. It looks like Silver Surfer stays over there. So we know
Right.
we have a Galactus. Galactus is a singularity. He exists in every universe,
Right.
in the multiverse. So he's over here somewhere. So they're coming over here. So that leads me to believe that somewhere down the road, if this is successful and continues, there will be a Norrin Rad Silver
A Norrin
Surfer.
Rad version. Okay.
Yeah. And we've got the next two Avengers movies. They're gonna be Secret Wars and then whatever that last one is. And my prediction, and you look back on this in 3 or 4 years, see if I was right, they're gonna do a hard reboot. And what we're gonna get is we're gonna start getting what James Bond has had. We've had what, six James Bonds, but they're all James Bond. We're gonna get a new actor to play Iron Man. We're gonna get probably a new Thor. We're gonna get a new Captain America, because at this point, Marvel have realized nobody gives a crap about Miss Marvel. Nobody cares about Captain Marvel. Nobody cares about the Eternals. These are characters that are just, there's a reason that all of them have comic books that have multiple cancellations, because they can't sustain an audience.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to do a reboot. That's my spiel on Fantastic.
That makes sense. That makes sense, and it would be a good point to do it. By the way, if the Secret Wars that they're announcing is in any way similar to the original Secret Wars arc from like the 80s, that's gonna be amazing.
I think it's going to be more similar to the one from 2013, where we had the incursions and all of the alternate universes destroyed, and you end up with Battle World. And I think that's why we see Robert Downey Jr. as
coming
that
back,
because he's not Victor Von Doom. That's going to be Tony Stark. Is that reality's Doom, because he probably killed Doom and took on the
mantle or something along those lines. That makes
we
sense.
also know, so about 6 or 7 years ago, there was a Captain America storyline in the comics where it was a fake Captain America and he was Captain Hydra.
Yeah.
And that's going to be in this Secret
Part of that
Wars as well. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Your level of nerd knowledge is beyond what I was expecting.
I can't wait to throw Larry and Todd together and just let them have at it.
Oh my God. I'm just going to bring the popcorn and sit back and listen.
You know what
I'll
y'all be
provide
like?
them with like all the snacks. You'll go.
If you leave me and Todd together in a room, it'll be like when our families get together. And I get together with my wife's mother. I'm one of the few people who loves their mother-in-law. She's freaking awesome. She's like from Germany, hard German accent. The woman is made. She is built of loving anger and spite and just twisted metal. She's gonna outlive all of us. But when we start talking politics, everyone else is just like, just leave them to it, because we agree on everything and we just go. So yeah, I imagine Todd and I would be very similar.
I would think you are. Alrighty, next topic, real quick. Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out. Let's talk about the video game stuff.
It got delayed.
It is. It got delayed, but it's still coming out.
Now, video games, that's something I know a lot about.
So this is what caught my attention. I did not know this. The budget is allegedly $1 billion.
What?
$1 billion seems to be the budget for GTA 6.
GTA 5, I believe, was the #1 grossing game of all time, if I recall correctly.
Okay, so Paul, educate me on video games. What would they? Okay, if they spend
GTA 5 made 8.5 billion. I just looked it up.
Billion with a B.
Yeah,
these
8.5
video
billion.
games make more than movies nowadays, a lot more.
I totally get that. I have no doubt they'll get a return on investment. What I don't understand, so if I look at it if I look at end game.
Yeah.
Okay, I see where $200 million in rendering and special effects and I see where that money went.
Yeah.
Where does $1 billion go when you're building a video game? I don't know enough about that world to
Well,
understand
that
that.
is
So
my
educate
wheelhouse.
me.
I have a
Tell me.
degree
There
in
we go.
computer science, my second degree. I ran an IT company for years. They've been working on this game for over a decade. And you
Yeah.
got a team of 500 people working on this game for
Yeah, your
over.
developers, your QA, your testers,
I mean,
your
you've
modelers, your
Okay,
storyboard artists, designers.
so
all
let me
that.
ask this as we go. Is it because the graphics are that great, or is the world building, is it that expansive? Is it
There's
like
just
the
there's
map
different
never ends?
there's different departments. I mean, you're going to have all. If somebody's going to have to program all of the behaviors,
Mhm.
you know, they write the script, right? They and think about it, like in a game like this with a role playing game where there's multiple branching paths, the script is going to be way
Huge.
bigger than a movie script.
Okay.
I mean, if
It's
like
all the alternate possibilities.
yeah, I mean, thousands of pages of possible dialogue and outcomes, and then that is handed over, storyboarded, whatever, to programmers that actually have to lay it out and make it work. You
Yeah.
got guys writing the code, and then you have people doing the artwork, you have people designing the physics, you have people writing the music.
Yep.
There's hundreds of hours of content in the game that movie is 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours for a long movie of content. Some
Yeah.
video games have hundreds of hours of content.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
that's where
guess
the
I
money
never
goes.
thought about, just thought about how complex it could be.
Yeah,
And
so
the
I
thing
mean,
is, and also let's not forget that because it is software, it has to work, and there are multiple things happening at once.
Yeah.
So you gotta test every possible scenario combination, so you don't get those glitches that then everybody like harps on when things first launch. Like the people going through walls and stuff
Paul,
like that.
have you ever been involved in building anything, any type of a gaming environment? Is that anything that
no,
you've ever
not
had your
games,
hands
but
on?
I've worked in project management, and I'm more on the infrastructure end of things as far as building out you put security, network engineering, and that's another thing too. Like you don't even think about that aspect of it. So like GTA has a online component too. There's a whole network team that needs to build out the servers, we set up the infrastructure and security for all that because they have a live service that goes on top of that as well. So that's a whole other department of people. That's my wheelhouse is infrastructure, security, networking. That's what I worked in, network engineering.
So I
So
guess the
that's
better question would be, how are they keeping it under $1 billion? I guess that's the question I should have
Almost.
asked.
I mean, a AAA game like that, yeah. And then it depends also. Like, so there's probably the story mode, and then there's probably an online mode that's its own, almost separate game based on it. For multiplayer or whatever. It scales up very, very quickly, which also leads to this possibly being, rumor is, the first $100 game ever. Are people gonna pay $100 to buy this thing? And I'm thinking, yeah, because
They've
by
waited
this
how
point,
many years for it?
oh, when was the last one? Like 4 years
2011,
ago.
2012.
So yeah,
I
10
I
years,
just
over
know
10
like
years.
the meme is, we got unlikely scenario here before we got Grand Theft Auto 6. That's been the meme for
Yeah.
years.
It has been. So there's
Now
something.
it's going to have to be Winds of Winter. We got X before, whatever it is, before we got Winds of Winter.
Yeah. Yeah, that dude, is he ever going to finish that? He's not going to finish that.
I don't know, dude. I'm looking at it. I every day I'm expecting diabetic coma. I don't think he's gonna. I don't expect that man
It's
to
not
finish
happening.
dinner. Yeah, much less finish a book.
You're talking
Yeah,
about
it's
George
like-
R.R. Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a rumor floating around that the book has been done for a long time, but he had an agreement with HBO not to release it for a period of time because of it contradicts what happened in the show.
Right.
Well,
right. Because
yeah,
they didn't
anything
do that last
written by
season, right?
someone with an IQ of
Yeah.
greater than 12 is going to contradict what happened in that show. That was
I mean,
awesome for like 6 seasons, and they just lemmings off a cliff.
Well, when they ejected him from the creative process, then that's when it went sideways.
Yeah.
Well, the guys that were creating it, they had a framework while they had the books, but then after that, he basically gave them an outline, and they went and they did their own thing. And
Yeah.
You know, I think back to how glorious those first 4 or 5 seasons were. It was just, that was the best television ever.
It was incredible. It really was incredible. Like my wife, who is absolutely not into fandom, nerddom, anything, was deep into the show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it had that wide appeal. And, well, it was something else. But that last season, I mean, it was like, shoot, we got one season and we're going to wrap this up. What are we going to do? And it was, everything felt rushed. It was
It
like,
reminded me of 2 kids that were playing with toys and their mom just said time to go and they had to hurry up and wrap up the story. That's what it felt like.
Basically.
So Paul, when you were doing your computer company, what did your company do exactly? You were back end engineering, security. What were you?
I mostly did outsource IT, so I worked a lot with government contractors, lobbyists. I guess I don't know. I guess I'm still kind of under an NDA, so I can't go into
I
too
was
much
just
detail.
curious as to like what it was.
I just say security, infrastructure, help desk, consulting, project management.
Was that a function of you living in Northern Virginia, or is you staying in Northern Virginia a function of those contracts keeping you there because of work?
No, it was a function of living in Northern Virginia. I was in the banking and mortgage industry before, ran my own business, and then that got rolled under. I lost my ass on that, and I've had a couple other businesses, and then I came in and ran operations, and then I took over as CEO of this company that was run by a couple investors. So that was what I did.
Are you still do you still have your ear to the ground with real estate stuff, or is that just kind of in the past?
I mean, I have an inactive broker's license, so I'm still like loosely aware of it, but yes.
Okay. Well, if you hear that rates are going to come down before I hear it, let me know, because we got into this house 2 years ago and I'm ready to refi this bitch.
I got mine done right at the right time.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I just heard Jerome saying that they're not touching the rates for a while because they're scared of overheating the economy and sending it into more of an
I'm sure they will.
Inflationary spiral. So,
well,
I mean, that is, I worked in banking for a year. I mean, the rates are sort of a way of turning the knob up and down on the temperature of the economy. So like if money's cheap to borrow, then there's more money flooding into the economy, which could potentially make inflation worse.
Yeah. I mean, more money, chasing less goods.
So I mean, that's always a risk. So they're essentially raising the rates is the government's way of pulling money back out of the economy and hopefully bringing inflation down. That's kind of if we want to look at from a very rudimentary level. But I mean, really, probably what really sparked the inflation. Ultimately, it was all the stimulus from COVID.
In 2 years, they printed more money than God because they didn't have the good sense to.
Yeah,
they had to shut down the world for no good reason.
Well, anytime you put more money into circulation, and I understand the need for the stimulus at the time, but anytime you put the more money into circulation, it is going to devalue that money.
Oh, sure.
It's ultimately, I'm a history nerd. I love, that's what I nerd out on. And like Rome, that is really what brought Rome down at the end was just uncontrolled inflation, and their empire got too big and they just couldn't manage all of it. And
they were
too big, and also no instant communication, unlike now. So you have
centralized power. Their military was overextended. I mean, they had this massive military that they had to support, and like towards the end of the Roman Empire, they were using coins. I mean, they were using rare metals, aluminum, or they were using silver and gold for their coins, but they started printing these coins made out of nickel, if I remember right, and then everybody knew they were nickel, and then everything just kind of fell apart. It was corruption, inflation, greed, all these things that
This sounds
kind of
really familiar.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar, doesn't it?
And I'll bring it back to nerddom. It was something that Bilbo said in Fellowship of the Ring. The Roman Empire was butter scraped over too much bread. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, they had a period of time where it was amazing, and they lasted 1,000 years. So I mean, and we got Western civilization out of it, but it eventually fell apart. I mean, every empire has its time in the sun.
All good things.
Yep.
You know. So super quick, and I'm gonna go because I know we're limited on time. But The Last of Us, and yet again, spoilers if you haven't seen the season. But all right, 3, 2, 1. So Joel is dead. Can Bella Ramsey carry this whole thing by herself?
I have played the video game. I have not watched the. It's good to see that they are following the video game.
Right.
But I
Because
have.
that was
I
a
have-
big controversy, right? Like, are they gonna follow that path? Now, was that game successful? The second one, was it as
Oh,
successful?
super successful. It was.
Okay.
It was very controversial in the game, but it's set up that really, I don't want to give too much away for people, if they do follow the game, but really
Yeah.
what it did was there's a lot of moral gray area. It's talking about a great female protagonist. That's how you do a female protagonist correctly. It's authentic. But his death kind of sets up a moral quandary. Like there's like all these it's about revenge and anger and relationships,
Right, and how you
and it's
handle
really,
that. And,
yeah, and it's more than just zombies.
okay. So there is hope, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So this is a show that I have not watched, but I kind of follow the pop culture commentary on it. But it's like Paul said, they're actually sticking to the source material. But this seems to be one time when the fans are kind of upset that they're sticking to the source material because they didn't want him killed off. But
Right.
Go
figure.
Exactly.
People were angry at the game for killing him off. I mean, that was a big controversy.
So we'll have to see how it plays out, because I mean, I'm personally, I have not played the games, so I'm familiar with them, but I didn't play
They're
them.
excellent.
Okay. So and one of my neighbor's kids who's friends with my son said that it is his favorite. He's a connoisseur of video games. He's like probably top 3 of all time.
Really?
Yeah, as far as narrative-driven video games, which are a different type of video game, it is, as far as I'm concerned, it's probably the best narrative-driven video. It's essentially an interactive movie, really.
Yeah.
It's not like Grand Theft Auto where it's a role-playing game and there's a bunch of branching narratives. It's a single narrative that it follows, and you're kind of an on-rails game, which is probably easier to program, but you have to have great writing to make it work.
Yeah, to make it interesting, right, and not feel like you're forcing people into the rail. So
video games for me, unfortunately, my knowledge on video games peaked with Legend of Zelda and Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I think they're cool. They're
Still
fun
classics.
to look at. Yeah, but I can't tell you the last time. I think I had a PlayStation. Which one of those had Dark Forces? Was that PlayStation?
Oof.
Dark Souls, you mean?
Dark Forces. It was a Star Wars game.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a long time.
That's been
it was
might be
like
back to the Sega
98, 99.
Dreamcast.
Yeah, it was.
Video games are my version of your Castle Grayskull.
Okay. That explains it. I get it now.
My dad, I remember growing up, I wanted video games. I wanted a computer, and my dad's like, that shit's going to rot your brain, man. And it's like, you need to get outside, get some fresh air, and do some hard work. And I love to remind him every time I see him. I'm like, dude, I made a pretty good living off of loving technology.
Yeah.
Us nerds with our nerd machines.
Oh my God, I've got an epic gaming setup at my house, man. I've got a 48-inch wide panel widescreen monitor, and I've got a Xbox, I've got a PlayStation, I got a Nintendo Switch, I've got
all the things. 2
gaming PCs, because why have one when you can have 2?
I have one. If one goes down, you got to have. I mean, what is it they say on SEAL Team? 2 is 1, 1 is none.
That's right.
I don't, so I'm kind of out to lunch when you guys are talking about these shows, because I don't watch a lot of shows, but I do play video games. Like I work long days. I work 10, 12 hours a day pretty much every day. But then when my day is done, I'm locked in on video games.
That sounds great.
Something. So I have a handful of clients, some lifestyle, some competitive, some that want to be competitive, very, very small scale. And I would like to scale that up. But my question to you is, right now, how many regular clients do you have?
Over 100.
And when you're doing an update, so generally if I'm doing updates, I pull their stuff up. I have an Excel sheet that I have last picture on, and I put this picture on. I make sure the same. So I've got them side by side. So if someone's doing a 16-week program, I've got 16 tabs at the bottom, and in each one I've got their front, side, back pictures compared week to week. So I look and I see, and then I make an adjudication of, am I going to increase, decrease, cardio calories, whatever. Typically an update takes 10, maybe 15 minutes. Is that about the same for you, or do you find that you're deeper in them, or does it vary client to client?
It varies from client to client. I'd say 10 to 15 minutes to complete a check-in. Normal check-in, like when it's contest prep and we're getting down to the last 2 weeks.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that gets a little crazy.
Yeah.
Writing an actual program up, like anytime onboarding somebody new, that's an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of
Yeah,
work.
all the work, the big work's on the front end.
Yeah, that's a little bit of work. But then like from week to week, I do keep a spreadsheet where I get people macro-based diets. I'll have macro-based diets. I have their PED protocol laid out. I have their training program laid out if they want to follow my training, and I track all their basic health markers like blood pressure, blood glucose levels, weight, their vitals. That's all tracked in a shared spreadsheet on Google Drive that I send to them, and then I have them check in over Telegram.
Okay.
And then Telegram, they send their pictures to me in Telegram, and Telegram does a really nice job of just putting it in their profile and sorting. All the pictures are just there, so I can go back there and
Really?
scan all the pictures. I used to put them in a spreadsheet too, and now I don't have to do that. Now I know like Justin, my coach, he's using Kahunas. It's an app where you can do all this stuff in, but I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of impersonal. I like for people to be able to reach out to me and ask me questions. You know, part of my coaching, I feel like, is not just giving you the macros and what to do. I also want to teach too. I view myself as an educator, and I encourage people to ask questions and to engage and learn.
Okay, fair enough. I know that's off topic for what we're talking about, but since that's something I've
actually
always wanted to
interesting
ask
for me,
you.
actually. So you guys talk all the coaching stuff you want because I'll learn from it.
Yeah, because it is something that I'm wanting to expand on, and as I have people in my gym that are having success, then more people are coming to me and saying, "Hey, what are you doing with so and so? I want to talk to you."
That's
so I'm
how
trying
it
to
started
figure
for
out.
me. I mean,
Yeah,
I started off as a personal trainer in college. I worked as a personal trainer and nutritionist. I did that for 5 years, working at a gym, and then I just kind of did programs for people off and on, mostly diets. And then I started working with Dante Trudel in the early 2000s, and then he had me and a couple other people that he trusted to do training with he stopped training people and he would send people my way.
was that when Scott Stevenson was doing the same thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
Scott.
fortunate. I had early on, I talked to Dante, but when I talked to him, I was in college and just out of college. I couldn't afford it. You know, I barely had 2 nickels to rub together.
I remember Dr. Scott on the forums. I think it was
Homunculus.
Yeah.
Yep.
What a name.
Yep. And I mean, I talked to Scott a great deal. He did. He came down to Miami, and
I'd love to get him on sometime. He's hard to pin down.
He is so awesome. I met him. So I lived in Miami for a little while. I did a dermatology for about 9 years before I got into ophthalmology, and I was down there and I was working for a dermatology manufacturer, and I covered the entire state of Florida. And Scott lived in Tampa, and I had talked to him online, met him up there. He came down to Miami and he did one of his fortitude training seminars, and I took that. And then I've just stayed in contact with him since then. Scott is so awesome. Like even last year during prep, if I had a question, I would, send him a message, and he would send back like 4 voice messages, just giving me super detailed information. I mean, just way more than I deserved. I mean, super nice guy. It reminds me a lot of John Meadows. I worked with John from 2012 to 2016. And even after I wasn't working with him anymore, if I had questions, he would always answer. He would shoot me emails back. He would call sometimes, and just, it's awesome when you can have those, those influences. And, I don't know Dante nearly as well as you do, but Dante has been awesome to me over the years. There were a couple of times he would send me a DM and he'd say, "Hey, next time you make an order from True Nutrition, let me know what it is, and I'll throw something extra in there for you. Because I always would put them on my profile when I'd get a True Nutrition order. And I remember one time I made a huge order. It's like a $400 order. It was protein and dextrins and hydro whey and all this stuff. He doubled there was double of everything I ordered in that box. I couldn't believe it. Like, just out of nowhere, just out of the kindness of his heart.
Yeah. And by the
Dante
way,
is one of the
I'm going to
most
say
stand-up.
before, so people know who are listening, I'm going to have the information for both of you for your coaching services on the notes for the podcast, because one of the things that I would like is like this crossover of nerdiness with bodybuilding and fitness. Is if somebody wants to get in shape and gets inspired by this, these are the guys to talk to. Absolutely. So, sorry, go ahead, proceed.
No, I was like, you won't find anybody say anything bad about Dante.
No. To me,
He is
Dante's
one
like
of,
John Meadows. If you don't like them, it's a you problem.
I can't tell you how many people have told me that Dante's helped them out over the years, just proactively. You know, guys that have gotten themselves in health trouble, guys that have, you know, are in bodybuilding, you know, just dudes, he just helped everybody.
If you just went on to Professional Muscle and you Googled posts by Doggcrapp, he's giving away a master's degree worth of health information, just giving it away just for free.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
So
yeah. And I'm trying, you know, that's one of the things I'm talking about. I've been trying to pay forward because I mean, you know, I have my e-course, I have my member site, I have all that shit, but basically everything that's there is also on my YouTube channel for free, man.
Yeah.
Everything's up there for free. And what I've found over the years is if you just put out all your knowledge for free, you will make money. Business will come to you, and then you charge people for your time. If somebody wants some of your time, then you charge for that. If somebody wants your knowledge personally, one-on-one, then you charge for that. But, you know, otherwise you just put it out there for free.
Well, you know, that's how I found you. It started out with a couple of your YouTube posts, just your shorts. And I had listened to Justin for years, and, you know, he was gone for a long time, and then he came back a couple of years ago. And I always liked his carb cycling, the theory behind it. I've never enacted it. And I started listening to your stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start. So I was just consuming everything that you're putting out. And from you, I found Dr. Mike, and like I use that RP strength app. I love that thing. It's great for tracking. And then, you know, I bought a couple of your courses, and I'm on obviously your community, which is a drop in the bucket for all the knowledge that you've given me. But to your point, you know, even though in the off season, I'm not as active on those forums, you're getting my money every month, and I feel like I've still gotten value out of it.
Yeah, the info, by the way, on your anabolic bodybuilding, the science of, I mean, you've got hundreds of hours of material there, Paul, that I've been absorbing and learning, and it's amazing.
We put a lot of work into that. I mean, a shit ton of work into that e-course. I got to get Kurt up there, and we can put some new stuff up, but there's probably close to 100 hours of content up there.
Yeah.
Probably close to that. I mean, so like you think about the work that went into it, you got to record the videos and then edit them, then upload them and stuff. I mean, there's several hundred hours worth of work that's in that course.
I mean, I've been in there, Paul. When did you let me in? Like a couple months ago, and I'm still going through it, and I'm diligent. So there's a lot of material there for sure. If you want to learn, like I feel like I came in knowing nothing, and now I have like a bachelor's in anabolic bodybuilding, at least almost a bachelor's understanding. Which, of course, a little knowledge is the most dangerous thing there is. So
I know a little more than a little more, but not a lot.
I know enough to know what I don't know, and I think there are not enough people out there who know that. They don't know what they don't know. I think what happens a lot of times is people do know a little bit, and they become convinced that they know more than they do.
Or that they know enough.
Yeah, the intellectual curiosity goes away.
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Exactly, and it just becomes my way is the best, and you've got a whole generation now of 150-pound broccoli hairs trying to tell you the best way to train, and I'm just like, you know, you can do something other than steal from TNF and Paul Carter and Chris Beardsley. You can come up with your own stuff, but you know, that's I guess that would be too simple.
I had my first time for my first time ever. I was questioned like whether I was and it was a young broccoli head type young man at the gym. He's like, "Are you on cycle?" And like, I don't even know how to answer that, but and immediately followed with, "Is it Tren?" I'm like, "Oh my god!" It's like the only word they know. It's like the only word they know.
You know,
It's
when
like
I was
no,
coming up, when it came to PEDs, when I was coming up, that was knowledge that you earned. And now people just will come up to you and ask stuff. And I'm like,
I
bro,
know.
you
Yeah,
don't even know my name and you're asking me this. You need
exactly.
to go somewhere.
And what kills me is like, in my case, like a lot of us, I have a story of like, dude, I used to be super heavy and I learned how to nutrition works and exercise, and I built this naturally, before even TRT. I'm on TRT now. I'm old. So,
Yeah.
but it's never the question of like, what was the diet like? What was your training? How did you get that done? That's never the question. It's always like, are you on? And it's that weird assumption. Like I've always said, like when people see somebody who's bigger than them, they assume PEDs.
Yeah,
That's the assumption.
and if there are PEDs, it's more than whatever they're taking because if you're bigger, you got to be on more.
Yeah, it has to
Um,
be like more drugs. It
I
can't.
just
It can't be that I train harder. you know.
I hate it for some of these kids too because now I didn't touch anything till I was 27. I've been training for 13 years before I touched anything, so I had a good
Hmm.
base. And a lot of these
Yeah.
guys, they don't know. I had to learn how to train. I had to learn how to eat. I had to make all those mistakes and fall on my face before going
Before
that
going to
way.
that next step.
And when
And the
Paul
other
was
thing
talking
is,
about all the information that's out there, I'm like, in a way, I'm envious of the kids today because they have so much information.
yeah.
But in a way, I feel bad for them because how do you wade through the bull crap?
Yeah, there's also a lot of there's good information and there's a lot of bad information. A whole lot
Yeah.
of bad
When
information.
someone asks me, how do I like, I'll have kids in the gym ask me, there's so much, how do I get started? I give them, I give them Paul's Instagram, a
Hmm.
couple of other folks. I say, go to John Meadows' old website, look
Yeah.
at Scott Stevenson, look at these guys. Don't, if you want to like your influencers, like them, but don't take anything they say seriously. Learn, dig, read, ask questions.
Yeah. I've been diving deep into Justin Peters. I discovered him for me. For me, it's recent. I know he's been
You
around
mean
forever.
Jordan Peters?
Jordan Peters. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Jordan's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, JP's
Yeah.
That old
amazing.
podcast that Scott Stevenson had, he used to be on it, and that was fun. That was fun. It was a good podcast.
Yeah. I've been doing that what is it? One set to absolute failure. And always trying to beat the log a little bit.
Yeah.
That's when we talk about Dante. That's Dante Trudell training right there.
Is it? Okay, I'm going to
Yep.
definitely dive in. So that's
Yeah,
dog crap on that forum, right?
yeah. Jordan
Correct.
Peters was Dante. Essentially, he's a Dante disciple.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
that's
Gotcha.
yeah.
As
That's
So
was
how.
he's
Scott
second gen.
Stevenson.
As
Yeah.
with Scott Stevenson.
If
Okay.
you look at
Scott may
some of
have
this,
worked with Jordan. I don't remember.
I think he did. I think he
Yeah,
did.
yeah, or either Dante worked with him. I don't know, but Jordan's super nice, man. He's reached out to me a few times. I mean, he's super down to earth.
You can look at a lot of really smart, successful guys in bodybuilding, and it's like looking at the Bill Belichick coaching tree. You
Yeah.
can trace a lot of these people down from Dante.
A
Yeah.
lot of people down from Dante.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's kind of our father Abraham.
I was gonna say I'm in Alabama, so it's Nick Saban, but okay. Nick Saban school. But anyway, yeah, I mean it's been interesting because I read something on Pro Muscle about that approach. Since I'm getting older, I used to do a lot of volume. So the joints were starting to talk and all that. It was hard to sleep at night. So I'm like, let me try this approach where it's high intensity, but the volume is a lot less.
Yeah.
And I'm sleeping a lot better in the last month, let me tell you. And finally growing.
Yeah.
Like all the lifts are progressing, size is getting good. The fat percentage is good. So following what you guys have taught me, plus combined with that, I love that this is a sport that's ever evolving. You never know enough. You always learn something new. You try something else. And yeah,
I mean,
it's been amazing.
this is definitely the quintessential example of the more you know, the less you knew.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's like, gee, I look back now, like even some of my videos I made a few years ago, and I'm like, holy crap, man, that wasn't right.
Yeah.
My dad will ask me something and I'll give him an answer and he'll say, well, you used to say this. And I always have to tell him, I said, all I can give you is the best answer that I have based on the information I have in front of me right now.
It's ever
And your
evolving.
input, if your input changes and your output never changes, then that means you've lost your intellectual curiosity and you're not learning anymore. And you're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. That's all there is.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, like, as at least, I don't know about you guys, but as I get older, it seems like we have to train smarter and better, right? Because
Oh yeah,
we have less runway to play with. So
exactly.
my goal is to be like, hit 70 and still be jacked AF. That's the,
My goal is to hit 70 and still be able to make it to the bathroom on time. That's what I'm
yeah,
shooting for.
yeah, exactly. Now, I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, because you always hear the whole like performance versus longevity argument. I want to find that sweet spot because I don't want to be 90 years old, but like a burden on everybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I go out at 75 because I exercised too much and my heart gave out, at least I'll be vital. And then, and then that's that.
Fuck,
That's
I never planned on living to 50, and here I am.
same, same.
Yep. Yep. I would have been more diligent with my saving if I could have seen the future.
What was the famous Mickey Mantle line? He's like, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would have bought more Bitcoin.
Oh my gosh. You know what's funny? There's a thread. I still go to Get Big every once in a while because I like the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
And there's a thread on there and it's like Bitcoin up to $5,000. And it's like an old thread. It's like 15, 20 years
Yeah.
old. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, if only I would have known at the time.
I
I
got a
remember my
Bitcoin.
first buy. Yeah.
You know
I
what?
got a Bitcoin story for you. I am looking at my account. I bought one Bitcoin in 2014 when it was $378.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. And you're like looking at that Bitcoin with a big old smile right about now.
I'm
They're
still,
over 100 grand now, right?
Yeah.
it was,
Well,
yeah,
97, right? Last I checked. I think
yeah, it's
94,
around there.
somewhere around there.
I'm
That's
still
Yeah.
sitting on it.
that's a
Yeah.
heck of a return on investment.
Well, let me just say this: I haven't had to pay for GH in a long time.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
don't guess you have. That's the beautiful thing about the sponsors, man. And with some of them, the more you spend, you get, and you use Bitcoin, you get a nice fat discount.
That's right. That's right.
And
Amazing stuff for
that's what
sure.
the Bitcoin fund is for.
Yeah, by the way, I find it stunning. Like the weird overlaps that happen between like crypto and bodybuilders. Again, is it that adoption of forward
We're ahead of
technology?
everything. We are the early
Yeah.
adopters of all things efficient.
It's
Well,
so
yeah, it's called the
bizarre.
way you pay shady drug dealers for your growth hormone.
What was that dark web that got shut down? Something Road.
Oh, Silk Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Silk Road, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember back
Yeah.
in the day, it used to be Western Union. You'd send all your things, and then that got shut down. And
And
then
you had to change, like the names changed every time. And you go to Western Union, they pull up the list of people you'd sent to. It's like, is it one of these 47 people? Nope, it's a different one.
yeah, it was Western Union, and then I remember then there for a while they were doing gift cards. You'd have to send people gift cards.
I never had that one.
Good
No.
Lord.
Oh my God, I've been through many iterations of buying steroids over
Yeah,
The
that
gray
sucks.
market. The gray market being gray.
I mean, the OG was, it was the big dude in your gym that had some extra D-ball or Winstraw in his gym bag and would sell it to you for like 8 times what he paid for it.
I don't know
my-
how you
my
guys
favorite
did. I don't know
story-
how you guys had the courage to do that because I'm very risk
story,
averse.
my favorite story was that when I first started lifting, the guys in my gym that had been through it in the 80s, they were like, yeah, it's like in like 10 years ago, the bear rep used to come in here with his suitcase, his briefcase, and just sell it to us right there.
Wow.
we would we it was funny. There was a dude, I remember back in the 90s, there was a dude at my gym. Yeah, and ironically his name was Larry.
I like
big-
him
big-
already.
big bodybuilder that would make a trip down to Mexico every year, and he'd come back and he'd have his duffel bag full of stuff when he'd come back, and it was just whatever he had.
Man.
But at least you knew it was legit.
Yeah, it was all pharmaceutical grade shit back then. And then I remember one of my buddies when I was in college, his dad was a vet, and we would once in a while steal the equipoise from his truck.
You got a lot of horses at home there, Paul? It's like, yeah, absolutely.
Came in these big 100 milliliter bottles. I mean, it was these bottles were gigantic, and I think it was only like 75 or 80 milligrams.
I had a friend in college. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill, which is in a city, but there's rural stuff right outside. So I had a buddy that was pre-med. One of the kids in one of his classes, dad owned a farm just outside of maybe 5 miles from campus. My friend bought a cow so he could legally get equipoise and Finaplex pellets. And you get your pellets, you go to Bass Killer online. You remember the magic solvent? Yep. You remember that? BABB. We didn't know it at the time, and then bake it in the coffee filter and the whole deal. Yeah. He had the cow. Then when he graduated from undergrad, he had the cow slaughtered and had a barbecue, and everybody came and celebrated his graduation.
It was funny. Of course, when I was younger, I lived out in a rural area, and I walk into the farm store and just buy the Finaplex tablets. Nobody or pellets. Nobody ever questioned any of it. We would make our own Tren. That Tren was fucking crazy. Holy shit, man!
That's why you could use 70 milligrams 3 times a week, and
it may not have been 70 milligrams. I don't know, man. I remember the first time I made it, and it smelled like lacquer thinner.
Yeah,
I do remember that. I remember melting those pellets. Probably horrible for you. I remember taking it, and it wasn't but like 4 or 5 hours later, I had like 102 fever. I was just burning up, man.
Wow.
I don't know if I had. It was probably
Instant
the
inflammatory response.
Probably the prostaglandins. No, it was probably the prostaglandins, probably just an allergic reaction. And I remember I felt like I had the fucking flu. But then I woke up like 2 days later, and I was just veins sticking out on me everywhere, man. And I felt like fucking Superman. I'm like, yeah.
I remember the first time
my whole house smelled like that shit for like a month, man.
But damn, you look good. Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
The first time I'd ever done that and made my own, like I said, I was 27. So I had dieted. I've been competing since I was 18. So I knew like how fast I lost. Like I knew what my body was normally going to do. Mm-hmm. And we had the same dude that was in medical school. He could get you remember the Sustanon apps, right? So my first ever cycle I was dieting for a contest, probably the wrong way to use it because I never got that big growth out of that first cycle because I was dieting, but it was 2 Sustanon 250s a week. And we did our Finaplex pellets, I think at 100 milligrams, and did that one of those 3 days a week. And to me, the thing that I remember was I was stepping on the scale every week. My weight was not moving, but I was getting leaner like by the day. I was like, oh my God, this is what's been missing in my life. I had no idea. Yeah, it was wild.
Man,
crazy.
You guys were insane to do all that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, how you said
I'm glad I came late to this party.
You know how you said you're risk averse? Whatever the fucking opposite of that is what I am.
Yeah.
I think they call it not giving a fuck.
Oh, this goes here. Okay.
Like to me, it was literally like a 6-month research thing to even decide to get on TRT. That's how risk averse I am.
I thought I had the internal battle for what 7 or 8 years before I did it, and then once I got to a point when I was like, okay, I'm still alive. Then it was like, all right, I'm straight with Jesus. I know the condition of my soul. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. Let's ride this bull.
Oh, shit. If you have to talk to God before doing something, you're being very serious about it.
You know what? If I come to and it's just me and him and nobody else, I'll be like, all right, I shouldn't have done that one.
I know what happened. Man. Oh, man. So I actually had like viewers' questions, but tell you what, guys, I know that we're coming up on time. So maybe next session, a
Next
week or two
session.
from now, we'll figure something
Yeah,
out.
absolutely.
Because
with
we
it.
do have some questions that I definitely think you guys are going to have fun with answering. So,
Good deal.
so yeah. So, guys, thank you so much. It was super fun as always. For the people viewing this, I will have Larry and Paul's info in below. Hit like, subscribe, the button, do all the things, the little bell, ring it, all that. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some more fun and some more interesting conversation and nerdiness happening in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everyone. Catch you guys later.
See ya.